Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This movie series is an action and drama. First of all, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you're always updated on the new movie recaps I'll be uploading. Thank you. Come on, let's get started. This is the most infamous, bad high school in all of Korea. Not just because of the violent behavior of the students, but also because school rankings are sometimes decided through fistfights. Despite these conditions, Yoon Ga-min still wants to get into a top university. Ever since he was young, he knew that knowledge could change his fate. Even without anyone asking, he voluntarily joined various review and tutor classes. After a long time of hard work, he rose from third from the bottom in the class rankings. Lose heart. When he entered middle school, he even got a private tutor, but his rank still remained third from the bottom. He blamed himself because he felt his effort was still not enough. So he studied everywhere, inside the bus and even in the bathroom. Finally, he moved up to second from the bottom. However, he kept failing repeatedly. Because of this, he gradually lost motivation. One day, he overheard his classmates talking about going to a technical high school and getting into college through special admissions. Suddenly, he felt motivated to study again. Full of enthusiasm, he entered the technical high school. But it wasn't what he expected. He thought that if he just stayed humble and studied hard, everything would be fine. His mother's friend mentioned that her child's rank went up after joining a study group. Because of this, Ga-min applied to many study groups, but he was always rejected because they said he was too weak at studying. Some guys even mocked him, saying it would be better if he were reborn than get into a study group. From then on, Ga-min promised himself that he would form his own study group. He looked for the smartest-looking student among the delinquents and found Kim Se-hoon. When he invited him to study, a student ranked 73rd challenged Se-hoon. Se-hoon didn't want to fight, but someone warned him that if he didn't fight properly, he would be reported to the disciplinary department. The disciplinary department is an official gang-like group inside the school that uses force to suppress troublemaking students. Se-hoon had no choice but to fight. However, he wasn't strong enough and lost that fight. On that same day, a new teacher arrived, Ms. Lee. Ga-min realized that she was his former private tutor from middle school. She always recognized his hard work and believed that someday he would overcome his low grades. When the teacher took roll call, the class showed extreme disrespect. One student even farted in the middle of class. The bully leader, Han Woo, woke up in anger, threw his coffee at the blackboard, and punished the student. After class, Ga-min approached Ms. Lee to catch up on the past. She kindly asked about the status of his studies. Ga-min excitedly shared his plan to form a study group and mentioned his intention to include Se-hoon. Ga-min followed Se-hoon around, talking nonstop. In the end, Se-hoon had enough and agreed to tutor him. He repeatedly explained the lessons with patience, but Ga-min still couldn't understand them. Even though his notes were detailed, they were still useless. It was true that he had no natural talent for study. Se-hoon refused to join the study group and told Ga-min that Han-ul would never allow it. Han-ul's father was a notorious gang leader known for his cruelty. Han-ul was #1 in the school, not because of grades, but because of his fighting strength. He even created software that ranked students' fighting strength to make everyone obsessed with power rankings. Ga-min paid no attention to this and showed his report card, which was second from the bottom. He kept trying to convince him that they should study for college. In anger, Se-hoon tore up the report card and warned Ga-min to stop bothering him. Inside the bathroom, Se-hoon thought Ga-min was still following him, so he swore loudly. To his great shock, it was actually Han Woo who was there. He immediately apologized for his mistake. However, Han Woo didn't let it pass and demanded 200,000 won as compensation. Se-hoon was troubled and helpless. Because of this, he was brutally beaten up. At that moment, Ga-min suddenly appeared wearing a mask and holding a fire extinguisher. In the middle of the chaos, he rescued Se-hoon. However, Se-hoon didn't thank him and instead kicked him for meddling. He said that if he escaped, he would be tormented for the rest of his life. He tried to leave, but ran into Han Woo again. Even after getting beaten up again, he didn't reveal that it was Ga-min who saved him. Ga-min arrived again, broke the club, and knocked Han-woo out cold. Ga-min always believed that a healthy body is the path to good grades. Ever since the 3rd grade, he exercised every day, and his uncle, who runs a martial arts gym, helped him with his training and physical discipline. The school wanted Ga-min to be the next leader, but all he really wanted was to study. After being saved, Se-hoon went home exhausted. His alcoholic father told him to just learn welding after graduation. His father said college was a waste of money, and that having a practical skill was more important for earning respect. Se-hoon left the house sadly. He used to be a top student. However, obeying his father's orders, he gave up the chance to enter a top high school and enrolled in a technical school instead. No one understood or supported his dream of going to college except Ga-min. Because of this, Se-hoon retrieved his old notebook full of wrong answers and placed it on Ga-min's desk as a gesture of support. Just as Ga-min was about to thank him, a chair suddenly hit him. It turned out Han-woo had found out that Ga-min was the masked guy from before. Han-woo picked up the notebook and set it on fire. In his desperation to save the notebook, Ga-min dodged Han-woo's punches. Even so, he still managed to knock Han-woo down. The notebook was destroyed, and Ga-min was furious, so he decided to fight seriously. After a few exchanges of blows, Han-woo fell to the ground, completely drained of strength. In rage and despair, he threw his burning backpack. Calmly, Ga-min kicked the backpack right back at him. The student ranked 20th beat a top 10 fighter. The whole school was shocked. However, all Ga-min wanted was for Han-woo to wake up and apologize to Se-hoon. When Se-hoon saw the burn on Ga-min's hand, he angrily threw the burned notebook into the trash and finally agreed to join the study group. At that moment, Ms. Lee arrived and put out the fire on the backpack, but it was too late. An inspector conducting a school review arrived and witnessed the brawl and the burning. The vice principal immediately pointed at Ga-min as a bully and decided to expel him. Ms. Lee spoke up bravely, stating that what happened was the school's fault. She argued that Ga-min had no choice because he was the one bullied and hurt first. She bluntly said that in this school, students are forced to use violence to protect themselves. The inspector recognized Ms. Lee as the top scorer in the teacher certification exam from the previous year. However, she wasn't able to register, so her license was canceled. The inspector asked her how she planned to fix the school's issues. Panicking slightly, Ms. Lee remembered Ga-min's idea about the study group and decided to push it as the solution. The inspector became interested. The vice principal was forced to agree, but imposed a condition. The study group needed to have 5 members within 2 weeks to be recognized as an official club. To make that happen, Ga-min and Se-hoon posted recruitment notices, but no one signed up. Meanwhile, rumors spread that Ga-min was a fire-breathing monster. A guy ranked 3rd in combat power didn't believe it and ignored the warnings, so he challenged Ga-min. Ga-min thought he wanted to join the study group and happily welcomed him. As he turned around to grab the application form, the guy suddenly attacked him. However, Ga-min was purely focused on finding the form and easily dodged all the punches. When the form got crumpled, he left to grab a new one. Unexpectedly, a locker door fell on the guy, knocking him out. Ga-min was confused and didn't know what happened. While Se-hoon was completely shocked, the students watching outside began to view Ga-min as an expert who could effortlessly defeat anyone. The rumors spread even further. Ga-min didn't mean to create another legend. He became feared by lower-ranked students. No one dared to make eye contact with him. However, all he wanted was to find students who loved studying through eye contact. While complaining to Se-hoon, he saw an unfamiliar guy approaching. Se-hoon explained that the guy was his middle school friend, Jang Hyun-yub, who later studied in America. Ga-min immediately approached Hyun-yub and sincerely invited him to join the study group. Hyun-yub laughed at him and said he didn't care if people around him got hurt, as long as the study group was formed. As time was running out, Se-hoon suggested they just play sports instead of studying. Ga-min knew he had athletic talent, but he still deeply loved studying. Ms. Lee encouraged them by buying plenty of study supplies and treating them to food. When she got home, she saw that the door to her house was broken. Inside was Han Woo, covered in injuries. Earlier, Han Ul had punished him for losing to Ga-min. He was ordered to ruin Ms. Lee's work. If he failed to do so, he would be killed. At a critical moment, the lights suddenly went out. A man suddenly charged in, knocked everyone down, and helped Ms. Lee escape. Inside the elevator, the man took off his hat, revealing himself to be Jang Hyun-yob. They had met on campus before. He escorted Ms. Lee toward the parking lot. Ms. Lee tried to call the police using Hyun-yob's phone, but a thug suddenly snatched it away. She tried to stop the commotion, but the men dared to harm a teacher. Hyun-yob fought off a few of them, but was eventually beaten down by the group. Han Woo recognized him as the kid involved in an accidental murder case back in middle school and ordered his men to beat him up. Afterward, he attempted to attack Ms. Lee. At that moment, Ga-min suddenly appeared. Ga-min took off his glasses and faced the enemies alone. He snatched away clubs and chains, wielding them like nunchucks. One by one, he knocked them all down. Hyun-yob wanted to ask about the murder case, which seemed connected to his mother's death. To prevent the situation from worsening, Ga-min stopped him and gave Han Woo a chance to escape. He tried to chase after him, but was stopped by severe abdominal pain. Before leaving, he warned Ms. Lee not to expect bad people to be punished right away. He also warned Ga-min not to proceed with forming the study group. Afterward, Ms. Lee returned a book about the legend of Bruce Lee to Ga-min. Ga-min had returned it because he had left the book with her. Ms. Lee hesitated over whether to call the police, but someone suddenly knocked on the door. It was one of the thugs. He knelt down and begged Ms. Lee for forgiveness. He explained that they were only following Han Ul's orders and would be killed if they didn't obey. Ms. Lee felt pity and agreed to let him go provided he answered her questions truthfully. The next day, someone sent a message expressing interest in joining the study group. Ga-min quickly rushed to the classroom of the sender, but immediately backed away. The room was full of girls, and he didn't know who Ji-woo was. A girl with curly hair called out Ji-woo's name. When Sehun saw this, he immediately told Ga-min to leave, explaining that Ji-woo was Han Woo's twin sister. Suddenly, commotion broke out inside the classroom. The girls were bullying Ji-woo and her friend Hae-won. They tore up their study schedule, stepped on it, and even stuck chewed bubblegum onto it. Ga-min immediately caught it and even praised the schedule. At that moment, Gu-jin from the disciplinary department walked in. He introduced himself as Ji-woo's boyfriend and threatened to punish her for talking to another guy. Ga-min suddenly threw the bubblegum right into Gu-jin's face. A fight almost broke out, but a teacher arrived and stopped them. However, they knew that interfering with the disciplinary department would bring endless trouble to the study group. Hae-won suddenly admitted that she was the one who submitted the application using Ji-woo's name. She did it hoping they could protect Ji-woo from bullying. She was a transfer student who accidentally angered the curly-haired girl and became her target. Ji-woo stood up for her, making the bullies even angrier. Besides that, Han Woo lost something important while working a part-time job. Gu-jin agreed to lend him money, but forced him to rob a convenience store while recording the whole incident. From then on, he blackmailed Ji-woo with the video and forced her to be his girlfriend. Hae-won was about to transfer schools soon, so she begged Ga-min and Sehun to help delete the video. Sehun was worried because the video was inside the disciplinary department's office. Upon hearing this, Ga-min still wasn't afraid. He hid inside a locker in the office and overheard a conversation. There, he discovered that Gu-jin was actually the one who stole from Han Woo that night. He returned the stolen money to Han Woo and recorded everything to control him. The mastermind behind all of this was Han Ul. Meanwhile, Ms. Lee called Gu-jin into her office and learned everything he had done. He didn't deny it and even remarked that Ms. Lee was the most interesting teacher he had ever met. On the other hand, Ga-min decided to take action. When he saw a USB flash drive plugged into the computer, he intentionally let Gu-jin grab his leg. He slowly moved toward the computer and snatched the USB. He stood up and cleanly knocked Gu-jin down. However, he was confronted by 3 other guys. Outnumbered, he was pinned to the floor, but he kept a tight grip on the USB. The villainous Gu-jin decided to upload the video online to ruin Han-woo's life. Outside, Sehun and Hae-won were discussing how to rescue Ga-min. Ji-woo, passing by, overheard them and decided to join them. Ga-min suddenly kicked open the door and ran out holding the computer tower. However, he tripped and fell, sliding the computer over to Sehun's feet. Ga-min blocked the pursuers while Sehun ran toward the rooftop with the computer. Gu-jin tried to force Sehun to hand over the computer. Seeing that the ground below was clear of people, Sehun threw it off the roof. Gu-jin was about to charge and attack him, but Ji-woo suddenly arrived and easily defeated Gu-jin. Afterward, a teacher took Ga-min away. In the middle of the chaos, the USB fell to the floor. Hae-won noticed it and tried to pick it up, but the curly-haired girl snatched it, saying she would return it to Gu-jin. For the first time, Hae-won snapped. She cursed at the girl and tackled her to reclaim the USB. Ji-woo praised her courage and helped her up. At that moment, Han-woo suddenly appeared. Earlier, Han-ul had told him the truth and handed him a knife, tempting him to kill Gu-jin. In the middle of the crisis, Ms. Lee shielded Gu-jin from the knife with her own body. Ms. Lee had looked into Han-woo's background and knew he lived alone. She also knew he wanted to kill Gu-jin to support his sister's education, working while studying. Ms. Lee comforted him and assured him she would help him. Ga-min quickly carried Ms. Lee and rushed her to the hospital. Fortunately, her wound was not severe. Ji-woo apologized to Ms. Lee for her brother's actions. Ms. Lee took the opportunity to invite Ji-woo to join the study group. Hae-won also decided not to transfer schools anymore and wanted to join the group alongside Ji-woo. Touched by the warm welcome, Ji-woo agreed to join. Meanwhile, Han-woo was sent to a juvenile detention center. As for Han-ul, he was arrested by the police but was quickly released the following day. One day, someone shouted from below the building, challenging Ga-min to a one-on-one fight. News of the disciplinary department's defeat caused a massive stir throughout the school. Rumors quickly spread that Ga-min wanted to take over the entire school. The first challenger was Kang, the #1 fighter in the 1st grade. Ga-min wanted to ignore him, but when he saw Kang tear up Lee Jun's application for the study group, he jumped down and punched Kang until he collapsed. Lee Jun had been obsessed with fighting since childhood, but he always lost. He thought his body was weak, so he started training his breathing techniques. He wore short sleeves even during winter, yet he kept getting beaten up. He thought his effort was still lacking, so he exercised even harder, even during class or on the bus. Yet the results remained the same. One day, he heard that to become stronger, one had to attend a technical high school. Gaining hope, he enrolled in that school. There, he learned many fighting skills and rose from 73rd to 6th in the rank. However, no matter how hard he tried, his rank wouldn't rise any further. After seeing the fight between Ga-min and Han-woo, he decided to join the study group. Ga-min refused because Lee Jun's only goal was to improve his fight ranking. Lee Jun stated that he would focus on studying to prove his determination. Because of this, Ga-min gave him a test that he needed to complete before they returned. While Lee Jun was seriously taking the test, a tattooed guy suddenly walked in. He approached the desk and mistook Lee Jun for Ga-min. He told him to come along for another test. They brought Lee Jun to a secluded warehouse. The guy explained that he was a scout for the YB family looking for backup fighters. Only the top 3 fighters from each school could join. If Lee Jun could beat 3 men and retrieve the car keys from the hood, he would become a backup fighter and win the car. Meanwhile, everyone thought Lee Jun had run away. However, when Ga-min checked the test paper, he noticed something was wrong. When Jang Hyun-yup arrived, they finally learned that Lee Jun had been kidnapped by a gang. The scout realized that Lee Jun wasn't Ga-min and decided to punish him. At that moment, Ga-min arrived with his friends. He held up the test paper and announced that Lee Jun had passed. Seeing Lee Jun's condition, they were all ready to fight. Ji-woo attacked first, and Jung Hyun-yub immediately followed. Ga-min used his tactical knowledge to defeat a guy wielding a knife. Then he charged at the scout, but the scout's raw strength proved overwhelming. Even with the three of them working together, they were severely beaten. Ga-min forced himself back up and decided to use a dangerous technique that his uncle had long forbidden. He executed a relentless, one-sided attack technique until the wall shattered. Suddenly, a car engine started. Lee Jun immediately stood up and shoved Ga-min out of the way. Ga-min reacted quickly, dodging the danger. A man wearing a hat stepped out of the car and invited Ga-min to join the YB family. Ga-min firmly refused, stating that all he wanted to do was study and get into college. After that, the man in the hat taunted Jung Hyun-yub, asking if he came to their school to offer condolences or if that was written in his mother's last will. This enraged Hyun-yub so much that he immediately chased after him on his motorcycle. The police arrived and arrested the scout and his henchmen. Before leaving, a detective handed Ga-min a calling card and thanked them for helping capture the gangsters. Back at their hideout, the man in the hat praised Ga-min's fighting abilities, calling his performance impressive. Han-ul also awarded him a rare 4-star rating. After experiencing life-or-death danger together, the 5-member study group was officially formed, giving courage to one another. Ms. Lee decided to take them on a field trip to visit study groups at other schools. The 4 dressed up in their newest clothes and walked confidently through Seoul. Through Ms. Lee's recommendation, they visited a top-ranked school, Man High. In his confusion, Ga-min took a wrong turn and accidentally walked into the neighboring school, infamous for its bad reputation, Manak High. Meanwhile, while waiting, Lee Jun decided to play a game to break the tension between them and the top students. There was an arrogant girl there who clearly didn't want to talk to them. She almost bumped into Ji-woo. A guy explained that the girl acted aggressively because they were constantly being bullied by bad students from Manak High. Meanwhile, a top student was being blackmailed. Even if his parents called the police, they would still face retaliation. Unaware of this, Ga-min entered the building and was immediately surrounded by bullies. He dodged a flying fire extinguisher. A guy inside heard the noise and assumed Ga-min was getting beaten up. When he opened the door, he saw all his friends lying flat on the floor. The kid who was begging his mother for money saw Ga-min suddenly appear, and saw Ga-min suddenly show up. At that moment, Sehun called and asked Ga-min to save the kid from the Manake gang. The kid immediately stood up and told Ga-min that they should leave while they still had the chance. Suddenly, the strongest monster in the school appeared. Ga-min calmly took off his glasses. Pouring all his strength into it, he quickly knocked down the opponent. After this, he brought the kid back to Manel High. They successfully shared their learning experiences. Before they left, the top students sincerely apologized. The kid called Ga-min aside and asked if he still remembered him. It turned out they were classmates back in middle school. Back then, Ga-min asked to join his study group, but he was laughed at and looked down upon. The kid apologized for his past arrogance and said he believed Ga-min could become #1 in school and even in the entire country. Back at school, the study group finally had their own activity room. Even though the room was old and run down, Yoon Ga-min remained positive, and together they planned its arrangement. They cleaned the classroom until it became neat and clean. Suddenly, Kim arrived, the #1 in the whole school when it comes to grades. He made fun of the study group and called them idiots. Ga-min suppressed his anger and decided to beat Kim not through a fight, but by getting higher grades. Ms. Lee admired Ga-min's courage, but warned him not to be arrogant. She reviewed the group's ranks. Aside from Sehun, who was second in rank, the others were at a very low level. She encouraged them not to give up and to follow her advice because they were capable of rising up. After class, Lee Jun said that he saw Ms. Lee go to the dean's office. Ms. Lee requested a disciplinary meeting to punish Han-ul, but the dean doubted if she could pull it off. So he set a condition. If every member of the study group raised their rank on the next exam, he would agree to Ms. Lee's request. Because of this, the midterm exam was not just a battle for the students, but also a fight against the system. Suddenly, Se-hoon received a call and left in a hurry. His father yelled at him to go to the construction site. While walking sadly, he suddenly heard Hyun calling his name. They had feelings for each other. While they were walking, they ran into Kim and the curly-haired girl. Se-hoon was used to getting bullied and didn't fight back anymore. He could do nothing but watch Kim forcefully take Hyun with him. At that moment, Ga-min arrived. He immediately punched Kim until he fell and kicked their cell phones away. Se-hoon felt embarrassed because his crush saw his weakness, so he quietly left. When he got home, as expected, his father scolded him. He ran outside and saw Ga-min waiting. Ga-min heard their argument and told him to come home with him. But because of his pride, Se-hoon refused and walked alone. Se-hoon was caught again by Kim, but this time he dodged every punch and even managed to strike back. It turned out Ga-min was secretly guiding him via cell phone from nearby. For the first time, Se-hoon enjoyed fighting. But suddenly, Ga-min's phone died and he lost his guidance. Se-hoon was in trouble once again. Ga-min quickly rushed down to save him. However, he saw Se-hoon stand up and bravely punch Kim until he collapsed. Afterward, Ga-min escorted Se-hoon home. It was past 11 at night, and Se-hoon's mother was waiting outside with an emotionless face. When she saw the blood on her son's friend, she asked Ga-min to transfer schools. She said she could accept her son's low grades, but she could not accept him becoming violent. Se-hoon thought it was just an idle threat from his mother, since it's hard to transfer schools. But Ga-min knew his mother was serious about what she said. The next day, Se-hoon's mother went to the principal's office to talk about the transfer. Se-hoon still hoped that no school would accept Ga-min due to his low grades, but his mother decided to move to Seoul to find a school and buy some time. Ga-min stopped the car and tried everything to convince his mother. Hyun even joked and lied that she was pregnant with Ga-min's child. However, the mother ignored it and drove away. Ms. Lee arrived in a hurry, but it was too late. She followed Ga-min and the kids in her car. Suddenly, a group of motorcycles blocked the road. Their leader was Kang, who had recently been defeated by Ga-min. He knew that if Ga-min transferred, he would remain #1 in the combat rankings. Lee Jun and Ji-woo got out and fought the group until everyone was knocked down. Lee Jun told the others to go ahead while he watched their back. Ms. Lee kicked a motorcycle and continued driving fast. When they arrived, Ga-min's mother was talking to a real estate agent. Ga-min's mother and Ms. Lee had known each other for a long time. 1 year ago, Ms. Lee's mentor, Mr. Woo, suddenly passed away. Ga-min's mother told Ms. Lee that instead of dwelling in grief, she should use her strength to help students, just like Mr. Woo did. Ms. Lee accepted the advice and entered that school to protect kids from bullying and help them study. She also mentioned that Ga-min had successfully formed a study group and made many friends. Because of this, Ga-min's mother felt guilty. She realized she had never held high expectations for her son, and that might have hurt Ga-min. But before she could fully agree, another crisis arrived. Hanul found out that Ms. Lee filed a petition to have him expelled. Because of this, he sent men to hurt Ms. Lee. Ga-min was ready to fight, but his mother kicked the bat away. She introduced herself as the director of the Korean Taekwondo Association. Together, they defeated the attackers. Ms. Lee was about to go to the police when suddenly a man in a hat shot her. Ga-min ran to snatch the gun, but it was too late. His mother was hit in the head and lost consciousness. At the hospital, Jang Hun-yup told the truth to Ga-min and warned him not to seek revenge against Hanul. Hanul had 3 bodyguards, Dok-chu, Son-chol, and Min, and they were extremely powerful. Despite everything, Ga-min still decided to confront Hanul, but he was knocked down by Son-chol and couldn't move. Before leaving, Hanul said to let Ga-min live. Ga-min stopped the other 2 bodyguards from leaving because he wanted to defeat all 3 at once. In the following fight, he was defeated again and remained lying on the ground. He heard the rapid beating of his heart and remembered what his uncle taught him. In situations like this, staying calm is the most important thing. He slowly stood up and tried to calm his heartbeat. After that, he used a forbidden move and fought with all his strength. In the end, he successfully defeated all 3 opponents. Meanwhile, the vice principal scolded Ms. Lee Han-kyung for submitting a petition to the Education Bureau, as if implying that the school was being used as a training ground for gangs. He ordered Ms. Lee to apologize to all the students and teachers. Ms. Lee stood quietly on stage and firmly stated that their school was no longer in a normal state. She expressed her desire to carry on her former teacher's wish and turn the school into an ordinary high school. Suddenly, the vice principal rushed forward and slapped the microphone away. At the same time, Yoon Ga-min kicked the door open and punched Pan. Pan fought back without hesitation. A henchman told him that he was just an ordinary human too, and that getting punched hurts, so he should stop being so arrogant. Due to the provocation, the man in the hat suggested that they face Ga-min immediately. Pan instantly made a call and recommended his bodyguard, Sun Chul. At that moment, Sun Chul was at the hospital taking care of his grandfather. His grandfather hoped he would become a good person, so whenever Sun Chul had free time, he studied diligently. He met Ga-min, who was visiting his injured mother. When he learned why Ga-min wanted revenge, he understood his feelings. Ga-min asked why he was obeying Pan, even though he clearly wanted to study. Sun Chul teased him, saying that studying doesn't guarantee a good job, but if he served Pan, he would get a direct job with the YB family. Suddenly, Dok-chu called and told him to hide. A few moments later, 2 fighter trainers arrived. Sun Chul immediately showed respect and even pushed Ga-min aside, pretending not to know him. After that, the 2 escorted him away. The next day, it was reported in the news that a 40-year-old man was stabbed to death, and the suspect was Sun Chul. A detective asked Ga-min if he saw Sun Chul at the hospital the previous night. Ga-min admitted that he saw him, but he didn't mention that the gang members took him. After class, Ga-min felt sad, feeling like nobody was paying attention to him. He also knew he didn't believe Sun Chul was the killer. The study group held an emergency meeting. Sehun discovered that ever since Pan enrolled high school students, crimes involving students rose, while adult crimes decreased. Since students are minors, their sentences are lighter, and they could be released after a few years. In exchange, they join the gang upon release and become members of the YB family. Now they just needed proof that Sun Chul didn't kill anyone that night. On his way home, Ga-min met Dok-chu, who said Sun Chul was not the killer. A fighter trainer chased him down, planning to punish him. Ga-min ignored this. He took off his glasses and punched the opponent until he lost consciousness. Dok-chu revealed that he saw a gang official cleaning a bloody knife. It was an open secret in the gang that the officials commit the murders, while the reserve fighters take the fall and serve the prison sentence. Ga-min shared this information with the study group. Ji-woo worried that they might just be used, but believed Sun Chul was not a murderer because his eyes showed a genuine desire to study. The 4 decided to trust Ga-min's judgment and planned to find the murder weapon to save Sun Chul. Ga-min and his friends wore borrowed uniforms and sneaked into the YB family headquarters. Sehun and Hyun stayed outside and used a drone to provide information. But on that day, the gang had a general meeting, and Pan was attending too. To avoid him, the 3 ran away. Ga-min got separated from the 2 and hid on the roof. The fighter trainer heard a noise and went up to investigate. When he left, Ga-min noticed that the door was locked. Meanwhile, Lee Jun's identity was exposed, so he chose to fight alone. While Ji-woo was searching for evidence, he found the murder weapon inside an office drawer. As he was leaving, he heard footsteps, so he hid under a desk, but the trainer had already noticed him. Meanwhile, Lee Jun was in a fierce battle. He suffered many wounds, yet he still defeated his opponent. Ji-woo was also in danger as trainers attacked him from both sides, causing him to lose consciousness. As Ga-min tried to find a way out, he received a call from Ms. Lee. He quickly reached for his mistake note notebook, but accidentally dropped it in front of a gang official. Suddenly, he saw trainers carrying the unconscious Ji-woo. He immediately hung up and repeatedly kicked the door. At that very moment, Hyun lost control of the drone. The man in the hat appeared and destroyed it. Their communication with the three was completely cut off at the most critical moment. On the street, Sunchul blocked the car. The trainer taunted him, saying he shouldn't be there. That's when it was revealed that Sunchul was chosen to take the fall for the gang official's crime. Pan promised to get the best lawyer and cover the medical treatment for Sunchul's grandfather. Afterward, he handed over the lawyer's calling card and threw Sunchul's word book into the trash. Because of this, Sunchul confessed to the crime as ordered. However, when the detective asked for details about the murder, his statement was full of mistakes. The detective realized he wasn't the real killer and advised him not to give up his life so easily. Thinking of his grandfather and the kind Ga-min, Sunchul decided not to follow Pan anymore and not to give up his life. His friends arrived. Ji-woo woke up, retrieved the knife, and joined the fight. However, the trainer was too strong, and even together they couldn't win, until Ga-min suddenly arrived holding nunchucks. The trainer tore his clothes, revealed his scars, and engaged Ga-min in close combat, knocking him down. He mocked them all as defeated opponents. The next second, Ga-min stood up unhurt and taunted the trainer's supposedly weak power. The two fought again. Ga-min used the forbidden technique taught by his uncle, the fourth move, a powerful punch, sending the opponent flying. Afterward, he helped Sunchul up and invited him to return to school and study with them. Sunchul hesitated, doubting if he could still be a normal student. Meanwhile, the trainer still tried to pick up the knife, but Ji-woo quickly kicked it away. He told Sunchul not to overthink and just study. Suddenly, they heard shouting. Sehun and Hyun arrived fully geared up to help, making everyone laugh. Ga-min suddenly remembered his mistake notebook. He immediately stood up and chased the gang official. At that moment, the detective stopped him, knowing the official was the true killer. The official pulled out a hidden weapon, but Ga-min knocked him down first. The bad people were punished. The study group prepared for the life-changing midterm exam. After the exam, they happily checked their answers together with Sehun. Ga-min grew sad upon noticing his answers were different from theirs. Ga-min's mother, recently discharged from the hospital, called Ms. Lee to ask where Ga-min was. Ms. Lee told her not to worry, saying Ga-min was just outside enjoying time with his friends. His mother explained that he always gets sad before grades come out. He can't focus, and sometimes he can't control his strength. His friends noticed something was wrong and talked to him one by one. Sehun said that water only turns into steam when it reaches the right heat, and before that, it seems like nothing is changing. He said studying is the same. If Ga-min keeps trying, the day will come when a huge change happens. Hearing this, Ga-min was enlightened and stopped feeling sad. Suddenly, Dok-chu called to say that Sunchul's grandfather was in critical condition, yet he was still insisting on taking the exam. Sunchul rushed to the hospital, but gang members blocked his path. When he finally arrived, he was covered in bruises and wounds. There, he saw Ga-min helping his grandfather take the test. This was his grandfather's longtime wish. Later, the study group attended the funeral of Sunchul's grandfather. Ga-min remembered his words that he needed to show Sunchul the joy of studying. He told the grandfather that Sunchul had already found joy in learning. Sunchul opened the word book left by his grandfather and thanked Ga-min for fulfilling the final wish and saving him from hopelessness. Before long, the midterm exam results came out. Sehun took first place, and the others' marks also rose. The biggest surprise was Ga-min, as he climbed from 300th place to 191st place. Ms. Lee brought the report card to the dean. The dean kept his promise and held a disciplinary meeting against Pan while he was on duty. Sunchul blocked Pan's car and told him to enter the school and walk according to school rules. Reluctantly, Pan got out of the car and glared at the study group, filled with rage. Hunyup told Ms. Lee to cancel the meeting. He was worried because Ms. Lee was standing alone against Pan's power and could get hurt. That's when it was revealed that Ms. Woo, who died a year ago, was Hoon Yup's mother. Even back then, Ms. Woo had pushed for a disciplinary meeting to clean the school of Pan and his group. But that night, she was killed by a man in black. Everyone suspected Pan, but a backup fighter took the fall for him. Hoon Yup feared that what happened to his mother might happen to Ms. Lee as well. But Ms. Lee refused to bow down to evil. No matter how hard, she would still fulfill Ms. Woo's wish. Meanwhile, Pan promised his father he would resolve this crisis as usual. Soon after, an edited video spread across the internet to ruin the study group, framing them for robbery and violence. Because of this, the entire school called them rebels. The vice principal wanted to hold a disciplinary meeting to punish the study group and fire Ms. Lee, unless she dropped the allegations against Pan. Ms. Lee told the students that their goodness was not wrong and that she didn't blame them. However, until the truth came out, they needed to ignore all provocations, especially Ga-min. She said she would handle everything. Suddenly, chaos broke out in the hallway. Students started fighting for no clear reason. Pan offered a reward, saying that anyone who raised their rank within an hour would get 1 million. Because of this, even Sehun's former friend attacked him. Sehun felt sad and confused, wondering if it was still possible for the school to change. Suddenly, someone called Sehun, and he rushed to the construction site. Ga-min also received a message and ran to the activity room. When he arrived, he saw that Pan and his men had destroyed everything. All their hard work was ruined. Ga-min clenched his fists, wanting to fight back, but Hyun stopped him and told him to endure for now. Meanwhile, Sehun saw his father arguing with the workers. His father was shouting, saying his son was not a rebel. It was the first time Sehun heard his father defend him. Overwhelmed by helplessness and guilt, he said he would quit school and just work at the construction site. The next day, Hyun's parents also pulled their daughter out and forbade her from meeting the study group. Lee Jun, unaware of what was happening, kept texting for updates. Ga-min was about to reply when he saw Sehun leave the group chat. Ga-min's mother noticed he was sad and asked what happened. Ga-min said it seemed the study group was disbanding. To comfort him, his mother said she only allowed him to continue at that school because she saw how happy he was with his friends. Ga-min recalled their happy memories as a group and felt courage once again. He cleaned the activity room and then went to the construction site to help Sehun. Sehun told him to just go back to school, but Ga-min said he wanted to go to college together with him. Sehun was moved by his determination. He knelt and begged his father to let him stay in school, promising that within 3 years he would get into a top university and give his father a better life. Ga-min also promised that someday the building would belong to Sehun. Afterward, they went to Hyun's home and spoke to her parents. They showed Sehun's high grades and even brought a basket of blueberries. Next, they saw Ji-woo at the convenience store and brought him back. Lee Jun was overjoyed when he saw Sehun rejoin the group chat. The next day, the study group returned to school for the final fight against Pan. Meanwhile, Ms. Lee refused to drop the allegations against Pan and insisted on proceeding with the disciplinary meeting. The detective advised her not to go to school yet because they didn't know what Pan was capable of doing. However, Ms. Lee refused to back down. Even with just 1 day left before the meeting, her decision was firm. On the day of the disciplinary meeting, the vice principal ordered Ms. Lee to go to school. He decided to reveal the illegal transactions between the gang and the school to Ms. Lee. Sensing danger, the detective warned her not to go, but Ms. Lee insisted on acting as bait to gather evidence. Their discussion began. Ms. Lee secretly pulled out her phone and started recording. The vice principal openly admitted that the school was like Pan's kingdom, a place where gang members were trained and money was laundered. He even expressed admiration for Ms. Lee's courage. Suddenly, all the lights went out, and the vice principal quickly escaped. Ms. Lee stepped out into the hallway to see what happened, but was surrounded by Pan and 3 companions. She warned them that the police were coming, and that she had a hidden recorder attached to her button. The detective promised to save her if she didn't come out within 30 minutes, but at that very moment, the detective was also attacked. Pan threatened her, saying that Ms. Wu's death was not just a rumor. At that moment, the school PA system suddenly started making noise. Hyun cursed once again at the evil people. At the same time, Ga-min appeared along with his 4 friends. They were secretly keeping watch over Miss Lee because they were worried about her safety. After finding out about her meeting with the vice principal, they planned an ambush. Ga-min instructed Lee Jun to take away and protect Miss Lee. Ga-min would handle Pan. Ji-woo and Sun-chul faced the other 2 opponents. Sehun was assigned to fight the man wearing the hat. Lee Jun faced A.T., a gang member who was formerly his childhood friend and later became one of Pan's henchmen. Miss Lee needed to escape and deliver the evidence to the police. From the 1st to the 4th floor, each one of them fought their respective opponents. They were all struggling at first. Ji-woo was the first to strike back, but he couldn't defeat the fat opponent. He joined forces with Sun-chul, turning it into a 2-on-2 fight. In the end, they turned the tables and emerged victorious. Sehun was shot at by the man wearing the hat until the gunman ran out of bullets. After that, he stepped up to fight. He had learned basic moves back then from Ga-min's mother. First, he endured the punches and refused to give up. When the enemy grew tired, he attacked the weak spots and ultimately won using an uppercut. Lee Jun, on the other hand, pulled the knife from his chest and swiftly brought A.T. down. Everyone had won, and the only ones remaining were the strongest, Pan and Ga-min. Ga-min was knocked down multiple times. Pan taunted him, saying he couldn't change anything and that he wouldn't be able to save Miss Lee. Upon hearing that Miss Lee was in danger, Ga-min forced himself to stand up. He used his most powerful technique and completely defeated Pan. Meanwhile, Miss Lee, who had managed to escape, was intercepted again by gang members. She held on tightly, completely helpless. Suddenly, she heard Hyung's voice. Standing behind her were the students whom she had convinced to defend their teacher. Another fight almost broke out. The next day, Miss Lee successfully held the disciplinary meeting. Thanks to her recordings, Pan was expelled from the school and arrested for the murder of Ms. Wu. The vice principal, who condoned his actions, was also punished. Everything was finally resolved. Miss Lee fulfilled Ms. Wu's wish, turning the school into a proper and safe place. Hun Yup was released early after turning his life around, and he reconciled with his sibling. However, the study group's story wasn't over yet. Their final exams were approaching, along with a brand new challenge. Study group, their final exams are approaching, and a new challenge is waiting.